This is Healthcare Marketplace Specialization, Healthcare Marketplace Overview, and this is Module 5.1.5, Health Bads and Their Consequences. So what types of bads are we really talking about? Smoking is pleasurable to many people, but it does create some damage. It is probably, of the diseases out there today, at least what it can lead to as disease, will be responsible, at least in 2000, for nearly 500,000 deaths, mostly from lung cancer. It's associated with a tremendous amount of vision and hearing problems. Actually, it's the largest source of cataracts in the United States today. It is a leading cause of lung cancer. 90% of deaths from lung cancer come from cause of smoking. Also, chronic bronchitis, emphysema, and COPD are major issues. There are additional cancers that are all complicated by cancer as well. Obesity, lots of links to hypertension, high cholesterol, coronary heart disease. In the year 2000, 400,000 deaths. In the year 2015, closer to 600,000 deaths, actually potentially eclipsing smoking. And as far as the cost, $25 billion in 2003, nearly triple that now in 2015. Excessive alcohol consumption. This is not just a drink every week. This is basically 2 to 3 shots of whiskey on a daily basis, if not half a dozen, associated with loss of productivity, disability, early death, crime, neglect of family responsibilities, lots of motor vehicle accidents, 100,000 deaths just in 2000 alone from alcohol abuse. When we look at some of these trends over time, there's actually some good news. What we actually do see is the consumption of cigarettes over a period of time from, say, 1980 through 2000 has been going down steadily. This is associated almost, you can almost say causally, with relative prices of cigarettes going up over that same period of time. The good news is that with the reduction of smoking prevalence, meaning how many people are smoking at a given point in time, we're actually seeing lung cancer death rates going down, particularly since the mid-1990s. And that's probably as an educational campaign, one of the most successful stories in terms of the U.S. For public health. This isn't necessarily the case going on in other parts of the world, by the way. Smoking is much higher in many of the developing countries, in China in particular. Russia is very high. And those trends aren't necessarily reversing that quickly. Now, in terms of smoking prevalence over time, we go even further back. What we find is that smoking was obviously much more common for folks who, say, were born in 1900, and in terms of percent of smokers, and then that sort of drops off as they get older. What we are finding is when we get to the 1960 cohort or 70 or 80 cohort, that the percent of smokers in terms of the max never really exceeds, if you were born in 1980, at any particular point, 40% of time in your life. And that's dropping off. And again, that will lead to less deaths and less problems from smoking. When we look at alcohol, we have these Burfus is provided by the U.S. Public Health Service. This is looking at binge drinkers that are there in the state that I'm located in. Turns out Minnesota is a high binge drinking state. Maybe it keeps us warm. Not quite sure. But when we actually look at some other places, interestingly, Utah is pretty low, which actually, given some of the religious preferences there, makes sense. Also kind of surprising. I have to say, when I first saw this, I was kind of surprised that a lot of the South actually is a lot less in consumption than I might have expected. In any case, this shows that there is great variation in drinking in terms of what goes on, and there could be also differences, obviously, with motor vehicle accidents that go along with this as well. Now, one of the other things that's trended through what we call the Burfus survey is this issue of obesity. And so this is actually one of the more fascinating things that this group has started to track, starting in 1985, where what they identified was the BMI, that is body mass index, of greater than equal, defining that as an obese person. And the thought is this is 30 pounds overweight for any person, say, 5'4" in size. So BMI is a calculation of basically based on your height and your weight to come up with some sort of ratio. And the thought was, as they were tracking, let's just see if there's really a trend over time. Because people have said, well, this is not really a major problem, with all the stuff going on with obesity. And, it's just something that's cyclical that all societies go through. So let's see. We see that some states here have, say, 10 to 14% of their population, namely South Carolina, Georgia, Indiana, Ohio, North Dakota. Some states less. There are lots of states that wasn't reporting data when it first came out. And so color coding will show us where we go. So this is in 1985. Now let's go 1986. We see a little more variation. A few more states show up in the mix. 1987, Texas shows up in there. And actually, you start seeing more states that are in play now. South Dakota is there, and more states are reporting information. 1988, we now see Texas has sort of entered in this space. Even more states coming in. 1989, looks like California got its healthy self together and decided not to be obese. But now Minnesota is, and actually quite a number more states are obese. We get to 1990, increased trends. 1991, new color associated with 15 to 19% of the population, focused on Louisiana, Mississippi, Michigan, West Virginia. 1992, a few more states coming here now, Kentucky. 1993, even more of the South. Now we've expanded over into North Carolina and South Carolina, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, as well as Wisconsin. Watch out for that cheese. 1994, now Texas, Missouri, Arkansas also coming in line. 1995, Minnesota and Alaska, Florida as well. 1996, even further out to Portlandia there in Oregon and Idaho, Nevada, Maine. New color, 1997, now greater than 20% of the population. Mississippi leads the way, along with Indiana and Kentucky on that trend. 1997, 98, even more so in the South, and now Michigan comes online. 1999, something really changes. Maybe it's the dot-com bubble on its way. A lot more consumption there. 2000, even more of the country. 2001, new color. Again, Mississippi leading the way, greater than 25% of the population obese. 2002, even more so. 2003, more so. 2004, starting to take off throughout the rest of the country, including Texas. Colorado a little less healthy in 2005. New color, by the way, Louisiana and Mississippi, again, leading the way, 25 to 29%, nearly 1/3 of the nation, or at least 1/3 of that state, technically obese. Now we get to 2010. We've expanded into Texas and quite a few other states, including Missouri. And this really is our current trend. So looking at where we stand today as a country, can you say, did we change between 2010 and 1985? I dare say we did. And that's really us as a society that's doing that. No one's holding a gun to our heads. So it does have consequences, and it's things that have to be managed in the care system as we go forward as a society. This concludes this module on healthcare behaviors and bads in the healthcare marketplace.